Hello, good morning. Oh, all nicely painted, new roof on top. They did a good job yesterday. Interesting watching how they did it. You know, I've talked about communication in the past. I've also talked about being able to have a hobby, something that will enable you to feel good each day. That's you yourself. And I had a discussion with a lady yesterday about that same subject. I mean, I'm staying in a house that requires very little. Everything is, in a way, physically perfect. And therefore, there's not much to keep you, apart from keeping it tidy and clean. There's nothing much to preoccupy your mind. It's a bit like staying in a five-star hotel. And therefore, one has to think a bit deeper than doing the washing up or doing one's clothes. Before, when I lived in Negillion, there was always something that needed to be done. It was a case of, do I do it this month or next month? It was always down to the cost of the small amount of material, plus, of course, the time that I had plenty of to carry out the task. But for many of us who maybe take on a Filipino who has their own home, one has to remember that they live in their own little world. And you come along, like I've said before, like a new motorbike, a new bicycle, a new car. So you fit into their world. You don't really create a new world. You're the candle on the cake, so to speak. And therefore, it's up to you to know what to fill your day with. Might be making friends with maybe a foreigner nearby that you can spend a bit of time communicating in your own language. But of course, that doesn't always come to bear fruit. Sometimes you just don't either meet one, or if you do meet one, you just don't click. And therefore, it has to be a little bit deeper than that. Talking about hobbies, it might be listening to the news, it might be buying the local newspaper in English and maybe reading it from front to back. Whatever it is, it has to stimulate your brain. And in the conversation that I had, I pointed out that many foreigners think that Filipinos are wallflowers, little butterflies on the wall. And they talk in terms of as if they're lower class person than themselves. And I wonder why they do that, because can they speak three languages? And I say can they, meaning foreigners. Because if your Filipino speaks your language, or at least communicates in some way in your language, she's probably three more times better than you. And you might like to, I don't know, jest about how they were living before you came along. Somehow you are the knight in shining armor on the white horse who's come to save them. Remember, the language here in the Philippines is Tagalog. That's the national main language. And the other language is the one that is spoken within the different regions, the one that's the dialect. not the dialect like, warning, warning, warning. I mean Visayan, Ilocano, Pangasinan. All these kind of different languages also are probably what she was brought up with. And therefore, you also then remember that she speaks English. So she's tri-literate. You know, she has 3 languages she has to deal with each day, with you as a foreigner in her home. And therefore, that's a bit of a juggling for her, because she has to think, maybe in Ilocano or Visayan. She has to communicate in her mind also the national language, Tagalog, while she figures out what she's going to say to you in English. Now, I've also talked about sound bites, and they do talk in sound bites, because if you imagine you have to juggle with those 3 languages just to carry out your day as a Filipina or a Filipino, then you would try then to understand that why you fill such a small part in their daily life. Their daily life starts when they wake up for whatever time, at whatever time, and continues till the time they finally rest their head on a pillow. In between that time, you are fighting for some attention, trying to have a conversation with them, and they have to juggle with the idea that they're going to listen and they're going to understand everything that you're talking about. This is why I say you must realize that your life will be somewhat singular, in the sense that it's not a sad life, but you have to realize that your life is a very small part of hers. I'm not talking about the relationship. I'm talking about the fact that things have to be done. And for her to spend all day talking to you in English will be a big ask and very frustrating, I'm sure, for them. So you need to have patience. You need to step back and understand that there are moments when you can try and get your point across, a subject that maybe you feel is important to discuss. But most of the time, she really doesn't have that much time to comprehend and understand really what you're on about. Oh, the latest thing that Trump said, or the latest thing that Zelensky said, or maybe the issue that you've just witnessed on TV. So guys, coming to the Philippines isn't just finding a beautiful lady to share your time with. It's more about you understanding your role here in the mix of it all. Yes, it will be a wonderful experience. Yes, it can be a wonderful experience. But remember, they sometimes get a bit tired of it. It's a bit like living with a deaf person, having to repeat yourself all the time, having to try and dig down deep to put your point across in a slightly different way. Not a childish way, but more simplified way. One ends up simplifying everything. A bit like those that complain that there's no food here that suits them. Of course there is. All the food that you can buy virtually anywhere in the world is here. It's in markets. You just have to cook it. You have to know the recipe. Otherwise, to complain there's not the food that will sustain you is stupid and just not right. The fact that you claim that you need $2,000 a month to live, No, you don't. What you need to realize is, what is your budget? What are you spending your money on? What's important to you? And what is essential for the family? I'm not talking about her parents, the family. That's you, her, and maybe a small child, or even adult children. So once you've worked all that out, you have to get on that plane, come over here, and live your retirement life without too much regret. Because I'm sure there'll be times when you regret, but not in the sense that you regret her, but you just regret that maybe you didn't truly understand what was ahead. So if you like this video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. And once again, I'd love to thank another subscriber who sent me some money, essentially to try and ask me not to run down Americans. As my mother, being American, said, if the cap fits, wear it. Bye now.